Welcome to the show, Reggie Ray.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, good to have you here. Reggie, there's lots to talk about. How would you describe yourself today? I just did your bio, your kind of formal bio. How do you describe yourself these days?
I would say I'm a meditator and I teach meditation. That's been pretty much the purpose of my whole life. And, I went through a lot of phases, becoming an academic and doing the university thing. But fundamentally, the practice of meditation is what keeps me alive and teaching it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I should mention, you taught me really formally how to meditate. And I'm grateful for that transmission that I got so deeply from you. Seriously, I think you taught me, I think one of the greatest things you taught me is how to be with my experience. I didn't really know how to be with my experience.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, and it's amazing how many people don't know how to be with their experience.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And because I teach relationship stuff and I'm teaching people how to work through conflict and how to communicate better. And one of the most common challenges people have is just to be with their own trigger, upset, and pain in relationship with another person. I mean, it's kind of sad, but it's where we're at, So thank you again for teaching me how to be with myself and my pain and my joy,
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we learn how to be with ourselves, actually, it's not as bad as we thought.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I don't have to be so scared. Reggie, I want to talk about sort of what happened to you. You were a spiritual teacher for a while, and there was this big thing went down. We'll spend a little bit of time on that, and then I want to transition into just spirituality today and just meditation, and I guess how it can benefit us and our lives. And I don't know, I'd love to get your kind of wisdom about how do we meet this moment, because we're living into some pretty challenging times. So, yeah. So why don't we start with I was, cruising around the internet, of course, and reading about you, and you've been called everything from, the greatest Buddhist teacher in the world to self-centered, narcissistic, patriarchal asshole. So, this, but a situation went down in your meditation community where some members got upset, accused you of spiritual abuse, etc. And, since then there's been lots of opinions about that, and there's this side and that side. And I'm just curious where you're at with that, and what do you want to say about, I guess, what happened?
Well, you have to understand what I do, and but your listeners don't. I teach meditation, and meditation can be almost anything anybody wants. In the lineage that I was trained in, which is a Tibetan lineage, it's all about dismantling our sneaky, manipulative egos. And the journey to egolessness is not fun, because with Trungpa Rinpoche, what my experience was day in and day out was my little games, my little self-deceptions, my little attempts to manage him or manage the situation, all of those were exposed. And I saw people around him. I mean, in one way, that's what we want. We want to be freed from this little prison. But there are also people that get really pissed off when you push their buttons.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to keep that in mind, that teaching meditation is a dangerous art.
Right.
Yeah, it's a contact sport, as far as I in our community, we started 25 years ago with Dharma, actually 27 years ago now. And it was all about meditation. A bunch of students came to me and said, we had this meditation program, and I just led a program, and could we keep sitting? And I said, sure. So the community grew and it grew and it grew, and then it kept growing. And all of a sudden, I realized there were a lot of people coming in who were not coming in because of the teaching, and they weren't coming in because of meditation. They were coming in because their friends were coming in. and their friends said, hey, this is really great. We're having a great time. Why don't you come in? So long story short, as of maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I looked around and we had a community of maybe 350 people, among thousands of people who are doing these practices around the world. But we had a group of more experienced people who've been around a long time. And everybody put themselves into it, including the people that were not there for meditation.
Mm-hmm.
So, I had an interesting, I felt that the direction of the community was really, we were going in the wrong direction because a lot of what we were doing was pulling us away from our practice. So I decided to be an asshole. I've always been an asshole, my whole life. That's part of my thing, My root, klesha, if we say what that means is my root sort of neurosis is I get pissed off. When I get triggered, I get pissed off and I become irritable and really hard to be around. Talk to my wife.
Yeah.
I laid down the law and I said, look, this community is about practice and everybody's welcome to be here, but I'm putting my time into the practitioners. And I can't spend time with everybody. So I'm going to start really just asking people, if that's what they want. And what happened was there was a backlash from a group, and it wasn't a very big group. It was a group of maybe 4 or 5 people who had decided I should retire and we shouldn't teach meditation anymore in Dharma Ocean. We should do other things, and mainly we should be social activists.
And they also wanted to you said they wanted to be more of a community, like let's focus on being a safe community versus let's meditate, right?
That's right. That's very well put. Yeah, people, they were looking for safety. They were looking for to play important roles in the community. And I think, part of my training is when something goes off the rails, you have to blame yourself first. You have to look at yourself. And so that's what I have been trying to do, what I did do. And I realized I wasn't clear with people, from the very beginning. And I let this thing really get out of hand. But then it was a choice. Do I let it keep going, into just being a normal community with all of the dynamics and conflicting agendas and lack of coherent values? Or do I insist that I'm transmitting a lineage and a tradition? And I decided on the latter. And I basically, I didn't kick anybody out, but what I did say was, you got to meditate. If you want to meet with me and you want to work with me and you want to come to my advanced programs, you have to commit to meditation. And that was the catalyst. And so there was a revolt in the community, and people wanted to throw me out. They wanted to get rid of the tradition. But that's not who I am. It's not what I'm doing. So I was fine with it. And end of the day, what happened was a lot of people, of these so-called advanced students, left because that's not what they wanted. And it's ended up in a good place. But I'll be honest with you, it's much worse in universities now, as you may know, where the sort of social justice extremism has taken over the conversation in a lot of universities, including the schools I went to. So, what can I say? It's part of the time we live in.
Yeah. When you first signed up to be a spiritual teacher, did you why did you want to do that? Why did you keep saying yes to? Because I've had a very small run here at being a teacher, not a spiritual teacher, not interested in that, but teaching relationships, right? So people naturally put me above them and I'm in a position of power. And man, it gets complicated fast. And then I personally liked the attention, being kind of I wasn't a guru, but being sort of the center of the tension. Like I know all this stuff. And it's very seductive for me to get enrolled in people's projections and think that I have all my shit together when I don't. Like that was one of the mistakes I made. So I'm curious, why did you keep choosing to be, because you clearly there were signs along the way of like, oh, this is hard. people are going to do lots of different things with me, and want me to be a certain way. So I'm just curious how you kept saying yes to all that all those years.
Well, Chogyam Trungpa was a very unusual person, and he was teaching a very unusual thing from Tibet, from East Tibet. It was a unique lineage of how to be a human, a fully functioning, fully embodied human being, and that is the most profound spiritual path. And from the day that I met him, I felt like this is incredibly important for the modern world.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been on a mission about it. Now, what you raise is a really interesting point, because when you're a spiritual teacher, and I would like to have a conversation about that with you, whether you're a spiritual teacher or not. You claim.
Yeah.
Conversation sometime about
Sure. Yeah, I've just gotten schooled like so hard, but yes.
but I feel all the way along I've been even as a university professor, one's ego gets inflated when you're in that position.
Completely.
You do know things, you do have things to offer. So it's not like, well, I'm going to quit and go do something else, because you have an obligation, I think, to your own teachers to offer what they gave you.
Right.
Then, of course, we become inflated and we begin to feel good about ourselves, and we begin to feel that our life is worthwhile. And how many times did I have an interview with a student where something really happened, and part of my takeaway was, well, I guess that means I'm a worthwhile human being. Now, the problem with that is, as you indicated, you get inflated, and then you become dependent on being that authority figure. So that was definitely a blind spot. And my wife Caroline asked me, why did you let the community get so big? And I said, well, because it was flattering. I felt that must mean that I'm not worthless.
Right. Exactly, man. Yeah, and it seems like there's this amazing dance between teacher and student, and teacher gets inflated, gets on their high horse, look at how self-important I am, and this feels good. But then there's this and the students projecting clearly some unresolved parental issues or challenges, or we get infatuated with rock stars or whoever, and it's like, oh, they're amazing and I'm not, and then it's this weird sticky relationship that I think is really hard to work with. And if you're a spiritual teacher in particular, I don't know what you think of Ken Wilber, but I love his frames around levels and lines of development, that you can be very spiritually developed, very underdeveloped relationally. So you could have a deep meditation practice, for example, but not know how to work through conflict with another person, for example. And I think a lot of spiritual teachers have challenges here and have gone down because they sort of act out relationally, or they don't know what they're doing relationally, but they have clearly wisdom to share. And then people kind of expect them to be some kind of perfect human being, which is just not reality. Just curious what you think of that.
Yeah, well, I think that, that kind of meditation that leads us in that direction, I don't think that's real meditation, because, John Welwood's work, spiritual.
Yeah.
Well, at a certain point, people would rather go into a state of sort of peace and emptiness rather than deal with their developmental challenges.
Right.
One of the things about the tradition that I was trained in is, when you sit and you totally open your state of being to whatever needs to arise, what comes up is your own shit. And you have to sit with the fact that you may be an asshole, you may have hurt somebody's feelings, you may be an egomaniac, and it comes up and it's very dark. And that's the path, that's the journey.
Mm-hmm.
So in my case, I think I factored out the spiritual inflation out of that journey, but that has been my training, that you have to deal with all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Spiritual teachers that don't do it, to me, that's not real spirituality. That's co-opting spirituality into a sort of ego game of one-upmanship.
Yeah. And wouldn't some of these angry students say that that's what you did?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And I'm curious, like, you're married now, have been for a long time. And, my wife is amazing with providing me really direct feedback, right, on how I'm being and how I'm showing up. Super
Right.
helpful. Same with my kids, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you taught me that a long time ago, and it's been so useful. And yet I can write off other kinds of feedback. And I'm curious if, you ever decided to go get help, let's say, like therapy or something, and why or why not, if you did or didn't, just to like see yourself even more clearly, like as another option.
Well, I have taken advantage of therapy since I was 23. I went through a long individuation training with June Singer, who's eventually became a very well-known Jungian analyst. And throughout my relationship with Caroline, we've been had couples therapy with a very good couples therapist. So I think therapy is really helpful. One thing you have to realize about the people that attacked me, we have to try to see it from their side, which is they feel like they were ripped off. They were brought into a community or they came into a community. And I said, the door is open, everybody's welcome. And they put a lot of themselves into it. And then all of a sudden, it's like, no, you're not welcome. If you're not meditating, I'm not going to spend time with you. So I think they felt betrayed. I understand.
Absolutely. Yeah. And your how probably at times wasn't right. You get angry and, like you said, you're an asshole sometimes. And that, of course, feeds into their, he's this controlling, patriarchal, narcissist asshole.
Yeah, but we also have another problem in this culture, which is if you're on the extreme right wing or the extreme left wing, and I would say sort of ideological, illiberal social justice in its extreme form,
Sure.
it's a bad thing. It's not a humanistic tradition anymore. Do you remember Herbert Marcuse, or did you ever read Marcuse? He's a neo-Marxist, and in my generation in the 60s, he was the man. And he said, anybody that's white and anybody that has privilege is evil. And you are permitted to break the law, to lie, to make up stories, to have fake stories of abuse. You can do anything you want to tear them down, and that's moral. And that Marcuse has come back with the extreme social justice folks. And part of the, I think, strategy of this group that I was with is just made up stuff. For example, my teaching is all about honoring human experience. Well, they accuse me of being a cult leader and of denying people's experience. But hello, my entire body of teaching is about honoring human experience and trusting yourself. So it was a whole series of things. And one of my friends asked one of these people, why are you just making up shit? And they said, well, I have to get rid of them. And the means justify the ends. Whatever we have to do, we're going to do it. So if you go on the internet and you look through it, it's a cult leader, controlling people's sexual lives, pathological narcissism,
gaslighting,
telling people they have to meditate when they don't want to is gaslighting. And one person, the leader of this, even said, what he's doing is worse than child abuse. I mean, come on. I mean, you want
to dance, man.
No, I mean, you got to keep your feet on the ground, at least.
Right. It starts to turn unfair. Like, it's one thing to say, hey, Reggie, I have like in an adult way, which is kind of what I teach people, is like, let's be direct. And hey, Reggie, I have a real problem with how you're treating me or other people. It's a whole nother thing to kind of run away and lob grenades, right?
Yeah, I mean, your training and my training is you've got to start by respecting everybody. You may not agree with them, but you have to respect them.
Yeah.
And two is you don't make up stuff about people. I mean, you can do it if you want to, but then there's no communication anymore.
Yeah.
And you never work anything out. So one of the interesting points was during this period, which ended really about 2 years ago, but during this period, I wrote to every single one of the attackers. And, I went beyond that to maybe 12 or 15 people. And not one person was willing to have a conversation with me. And at that point, I realized this is not about working out issues with me. It's about power.
Mm.
There was also an attempt where a couple of people went to the lawyers of Dharma Ocean and tried to see if they could actually legally take over everything in Dharma Ocean. So this was, in my opinion, at the end of the day, there were a lot of legitimate complaints and there was a lot for me to learn. But at the end of the day, it was really about power and who control this community and the assets, the building and so on.
Oh man, I'm curious how you dealt with like if I'm you, I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes, and I could certainly do this with the 12 or the 4, whoever they were as well, because I think that's an interesting experiment. But if I put myself in your shoes, I would feel hurt myself. I don't know, I'd feel pretty alone. So I'm just curious how you felt and how you deal and dealt with your experience. I'm assuming you meditated, of course, but yeah, I'm curious how you worked with that.
Well, you have to realize I knew these people, really well. And I knew their issues. And I wasn't, to a person, these were not people for whom the practice was that important. I cared about them and I still do. And the door's always open. I say that. But I also understood what was going on and I understood how they felt cornered in their own life by having put so much into this. And then all of a sudden, they felt the game was changed on them. So I was, I have to be honest with you. At the end of the day, I'm very grateful that the whole thing happened because I think the folks who moved on really needed to for their own sanity.
Mm-hmm.
I think, for several years, every program I was in, I was dealing with people that wanted the community to be something different. And I was talking with Caroline about it the other day, and we were talking about it for 2 or 3 years. I couldn't even teach because so many people that wanted to, meditate. Let's not meditate. Let's do something else with these programs we're having. And that, that was tough. And now it's not like that anymore. I have the freedom to teach, thank God.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for it. I'm glad it happened. And I'm not really angry at anybody. I don't know if you know this, but when I was teaching Trungpa Rinpoche's teaching at the Shambhala Mountain Center, which is, as you know, a retreat center for our community, Trungpa Rinpoche's son, who is now, basically in disgrace for his sexual relations.
Yeah. Sakyam Mipan, yep.
Yeah, he wanted me to teach his teachings and not his father's, and I refused. That's not what I do. It's not what I know. And he kicked me out of that community. So I've been through this before, and it just created a sense of alienation between me and all of his own students. So it's like this is just how the spirituality thing goes, and you have so many moments when you have to decide what's important to you, right?
Totally. I'm almost hearing like in there that you, and you sort of just said this a while back there, which is like you misled people by saying, or by not putting your foot down around meditation firm enough, maybe soon enough. You sort of allowed things to get a little too out of control. Community, yeah, okay, I guess we're doing that now. And you didn't, is that right? You didn't like come in sooner, stronger, more firmly?
Really true. Well, from the beginning, I let the students basically tell me what they wanted, which is they wanted to meditate. So that's great, do it. But then I just let it keep going. I mean, that was my mistake. I was just being totally naive.
Yeah.
I thought everybody, if I said we're meditating, everybody would meditate. I mean, come on. I'm an adult. I thought that, but
Yeah.
it did.
Well, this is so interesting because I've never said this to you, but one of the reasons I left the community a long time ago was, or just transitioned, however you want to call it, was because I wanted more of that community thing.
Yeah.
And so rather than ask you to be different, I was just like, cool, I'm going to do something different. Because I was like, oh, this is like so hardcore meditation. And I was, my own relational stuff was coming up with all the challenges in the Sangha with people and saying, "Ooh, we need to learn how to work through shit," because that's now what I stand for, right? But rather than, because that's my dharma, that's not your dharma. Like my path is, I'm going to go do that.
Yeah.
So it was actually a really trustworthy sort of transition for me. But I'm hearing that maybe a lot of people stayed and kept trying to get you to be different.
Yeah. But you follow the teachings. The teachings are trust your experience.
Yeah, trust your inner authority. And you said to me many times, Jason, go do what you're here to do and spread the Dharma in your way. And I'm doing that.
Yeah, you are doing it.
Yeah, so thank you for that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I had a couple other questions here. I mean, it's got to be, do you think there's still a place for spiritual teachers? Because so many, quote, spiritual teachers have kind of gone down, right? They're either canceled, they had an affair with a student, it turns out it's a cult, or they were money laundering, like who knows? Like there's all kinds of real, normal issues that the spiritual person can't bypass because they're a human being. Is there still a place for spiritual teachers, or are we transitioning to some other thing now?
Well, I think a spiritual teacher with a big community is an oxymoron. I personally, I've never thought that much about organized religion. I mean, that's my field. I've studied religion all life. I don't think organized religion, organized communities under a spiritual teacher, I just don't think it works. I don't think it's a good idea. I think I know. I saw it with Trungpa Rinpoche, I saw it with his son, and I saw it with myself. It doesn't work. You can't do it. If you want to be a spiritual teacher, you have to work individually with people, and not that many. And you've got to be there for them. You can't just preside over a gigantic community, because you have all this shit that comes up and all the fighting and then you get sucked into it, and then your shit comes out. It's a mess.
Right. It's a mess.
So I think spirit being authentic spiritual teaching is really important, but not in control.
Not at scale.
Not at scale. Thank you. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Because I've heard people say, oh, like everything from the community is now the teacher to couples are teachers now because one person can't sort of do this alone. And then I'm over here going, well, could we as students of whatever we're studying, could we be more responsible with what we're projecting onto these people? And instead of seeing them as these perfect beings that can't step out of line and be a neurotic human being, like, could we actually get a little smarter as students instead of thinking that the teacher or mentor is somehow unflawed or not neurotic?
Yeah, that's true. But I think the teacher has a role to play. If the teacher won't buy it, it's not going to happen. If the teacher refuses to be put on a pedestal, deliberately puts their humanity out in the open, the student's going to be far less likely to play the game.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That was one of my weak spots, I think, as a mentor teacher, is getting unconsciously kind of falling asleep and thinking, oh, I can't be a person here somehow. And then it's like, and then when eventually the actual person comes out, everybody's disappointed, right?
Yeah, that's good. And I like the couple thing. I mean, I rely a huge amount on Caroline, huge. And you're right about the feedback. I mean, Caroline, the reason I'm with her is because when she needs to punch me right in the face, she does it. And I need that. I'm good with it. It's okay with me. I got black.
Yeah. Do I need to report you're Caroline here? I'm just kidding. I know you're meaning metaphorical punch, of course. Yeah. It seemed like Trungpa Rinpoche from, I wasn't in contact with him like you were, but it seems like the way he taught was to behave in a way that would keep taking him off some kind of pedestal, but it seemed impossible. Like people, even with all his drinking and his whatever the hell he was doing that looked kind of like crazy wisdom or craziness, people continue to do it anyway.
Yeah, that's true. And that's a big, big problem. It's very sad. There's a book by his wife called Dragon Thunder. The woman lays it out so brutally of how human he was, where he went off, how he treated her, how pissed off she got. I wish everybody would read that book, because you read that book and you go, okay, fine. He wasn't trying to project that perfectionism, but
No.
I agree with you. The students still are trying to do it, and it's not good. It's not the lineage. It's not dharma.
Right. Yeah, he was like this exotic creature from the East, and so therefore he must know something I don't know, and I've got to worship him.
Yeah.
Man, complicated. All right, quick interruption from us here at the Relationship School to remind you about Deeper, relationshipschool.com/deeper. Check out what Casey had to say, who went through our 9-month training.
As an entrepreneur, I face a lot of my time looking at myself and what I'm doing and how to improve my business. And I was feeling like I was hitting walls personally and professionally. And those walls weren't like skills, like business skills. They were like interpersonal issues. They were the things that were keeping me up at night. It was the frustration that I felt. It was sweating. It was the tension. And it was like not knowing this stuff. So I enrolled in Deeper 9 months ago and just kind of had my life dramatically shifted. I got in touch with myself in a way that I've never been in touch with myself before. My whole life I've been striving and working and building and growing, but all of those things felt like exterior and none of it felt interior. Deeper broke that shell open, and it feels like I'm like peeling apart this armor that I've built to get an understanding of who I am, understanding that these emotions I felt were anxiety. And I could find where that anxiety lives in my body and what to do with it and how to see the triggers in my life that cause it and create space between those triggering events and the actual emotion. Jason talks about this core human split between who I am and who I act as in order to get love and care and attachment. And it's about closing that gap. And through Deeper, I learned skills and tools to apply to that part of me, tools that help my marriage. Our arguments are short-lived. We resolve them quickly. To say it's been life-changing feels trite, but I don't know how else to describe this and how powerful it is. I'm just feeling more secure in who I am and what I'm doing, and how that reflects in business is that I'm establishing better boundaries to support myself. I'm not feeling as emotional around the ups and downs of business, which has been huge for my well-being. It's just like touching to be around people that care, that want to be part of the conversation and support me and push me along. You can't change your life in 2 days. When I started going to the gym, it's not like I got fit in a weekend. 9 months is a pretty solid course. I don't know anyone else. And I've looked, right? I've gone through live events and audio programs and read books and attended conferences, and no one has this education that Jason has. Jason offers a step-by-step approach that helped me see who I am and how I show up and why I show up that way, and give me the choice to change my behaviors based on changing my values, change my relationship by creating new agreements, and have the relationship that I want.
Wow, Casey, thanks, man. Casey rocked it in the course and just went all in, and so did his wife, and they just had an amazing time, and they have a better marriage. So you want to join us, relationshipschool.com/DPIR to apply. All right, back to the podcast. So where, I mean, you talked about universities, and I agree with you in that it seems like things are, I was just saying to you before we hit record that, there was a little bit of sprinkling outside my window today of snow, and my kid's school canceled the after school activities because there's a snowstorm coming. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And to me, it just speaks to this kind of what I was calling fragilizing. Like we're like parents are doing this more and more, especially privileged parents, which is they're thinking their kids are very fragile, which does the opposite of what they're wanting, which is to build resilient children.
Yeah.
And you're sort of speaking to that in university. Can you say more about, I guess, where you're seeing just culture going right now, and with all the challenges we're facing politically, and then with COVID, and I don't know, I'm just curious to get your take on what you see.
Well, I don't know if you've read Jonathan Haidt and Greg Lukianoff. They wrote a book called The Coddling of the American Mind. And it's become very, very influential among educators. Basically, what they're talking about there is that over the last 25 years, parents, and unfortunately it started with my generation in the 60s, but it's gotten much worse, where parents have come to believe that their kids are in imminent danger of all kinds of things. And kids have been brought up believing they're fragile. And so now, this group of students over the last, since 2015, they are in college and they're demanding to be protected. As you know,
Right.
they're
Right.
protected from ideas that make them uncomfortable, from speakers that they don't agree with, from books that upset them. And it's, they're actually not that fragile, but they think they are. And their parents think.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you a funny story. My stepson, Caroline's son, he's in college now, and he was rooming with a football player. And the football player couldn't get through the day without talking to his mother every day. He couldn't get through the day.
Yeah.
What does that show? I mean, it's
Right.
kids are retarded in their emotional development now. And yeah, I know the internet culture and the iPhone has a lot to do with it, but it's also the parenting. And it's really a problem, because when kids believe that 90% of what human beings normally go through is a bad thing and they need some kind of remedy or medication, I mean, it's really so unfair to them.
Yeah, it's unfair. Exactly. It robs people of their journey, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a book actually called How to Raise an Adult.
Oh, I know that.
Yeah, some of this book, this woman was like I don't know if she was the dean or admissions coordinator at Princeton or something. And she's like, dude, the parents now that are coming into college, dropping their kids off and just hovering around and intervening at every little challenge that the kid has. It's just like they're still trying to do their kid's life. And again, I would point to privileged parents are the problem.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Because parents with lower socioeconomic class, they're not sitting there around all day worrying in the same way. They're like holding down two jobs and, they're worrying about their next meal. Privileged parents are just like on their phones, like they're pretty soon it's going to be tracking devices in their kid to like watch where their kid's at every fucking minute. It's sad. Yeah. So I'm, for a person that teaches relationships over here, like it's a bummer because I'm into like most adults in adult relationships struggle developmentally. They're dealing still with that kind of wounded kid inside, projecting all their unmet needs on their partner, not knowing they're doing that, and having very little capacity for discomfort. And I'm like, that's the path to a great relationship is adversity.
How do you, as a relationship specialist, how do you deal with the lack of relational skills that I personally am perceiving now in kids who have grown up on the iPhone and conducted so many relationships virtually? What do you see there, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, it's sad because a lot of teenagers now, they're not even excited to get their driver's license at 16 because I see my friends all day, every day. I don't need to go see them. So they're on their phone in their room on social media, Snapchat or Instagram or whatever, just going back and forth with their friends 24/7, which I don't know, it's a way, like on the big picture, I can trust it. I'm like, okay, this is what's occurring. But it's sad because I think kids are more and more insecure. Kids are more anxious. Parents are like, holy shit, what kind of monster did I create here? Parents are very scared of their kids' emotions. And if their kid's upset, they let their kids' emotions kind of run the household, which is a real problem.
So true.
So I worry, but that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I want to try to change that.
It's a challenge.
Yeah, it's a challenge. Yeah. Well, Reggie, I'm wondering if you, just with a little bit of time left, would you be willing to just guide us in to help us be with our experience? Is there a short meditation for a couple of 5 minutes you could do with us to just bring us into our experiences so a person could actually even begin to practice this at home?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Just because they might be a little uncomfortable listening to this and they might be like, oh, I don't know how to deal with my experience. Yeah. How do you, like a newbie, or just someone listening, What's a good way to get someone to get present and be with their experience?
Well, let's start with the notion that within each one of us, within our bodies, and beginning with the soles of our feet to the top of our head, there's a whole universe in there. And there's a universe in which all of the experiences and all of the things that we long for and hope for are already there and available. We can experience them. So it's basically beginning with an attitude, a very positive attitude toward what's going on inside us. And then step two would be putting our attention in our body. And I think the easiest way to do it is to feel, we'll do one of the somatic protocols I teach. So put your attention in your lower belly, and we're going to pick a spot midway between the perineum at the base of the pelvic floor and the navel. So just feel into a spot midway between those 2 points in the middle of our body. And see when you put your attention there, what do you notice? Maybe it's dark, maybe you can't feel anything. And then let's start breathing into that point. So we're going to imagine that we're bringing the breath directly in to a point midway between the perineum and the navel in the middle of the body. It's almost as if we have a nostril there. We're pulling air directly into it, pulling the breath in. So on the in-breath, imagine you're breathing in through that nostril. You can imagine there's a balloon in your lower belly, and on the in-breath, the balloon fills. And on the out-breath, it collapses. In-breath, it fills. Out-breath, it collapses. And see if you can feel this physically. Feel the breath coming into the lower belly. As you do this, your whole body can begin to relax. You can begin to relax everything into that breath in the lower belly. And as we breathe, the thinking mind begins to become more subdued, and our attention, our investment begins to move from our head into our lower belly, which is the source of all life and all awareness. Breathing in, the more we breathe in, the more we can feel the breath in the lower belly. And then, if you can, imagining your own awareness dissolving into the breath in the lower belly. As you breathe in, imagine that yourself, your self-consciousness is dissolving into the lower belly. And let go. Anytime that you want to come back to yourself and awaken a much fuller sense of direct experience, you can do this practice. And you can do it at night if you have insomnia. It's a wonderful way to go back to sleep.
Yeah, thank you. And Reggie, is this a form of shamatha or vipassana meditation, or is this something else? Can you tell the listener maybe the difference there and what this might be?
Well, shamatha means, as you know, paying attention. And the object of meditation is the lower belly. So we're paying attention, we're doing shamatha. But then the more we settle and open, then we begin to see things and notice things, and that's vipassana. So this is shamatha and vipassana, shamatha transitioning into vipassana. And eventually in this practice, you enter the lower dantian, which is known as in Taoism as the source, the origin, or the hara. It's the same thing, but that's the Zen way of looking at it. So we're working with the hara, we're working with the foundation of energy, of life force, and of awareness when we work with the lower belly. It's so important.
And I'm assuming that's why we're choosing you choose often the body or lower belly, as opposed to, say, the nose or the breath coming in and out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And will you say something about your earth breathing? Why, you have a whole book, and you used to have a course meditating with the body. And for me, it was so helpful as a young kind of meditator that, often found myself in my head. Your practices around lying down and putting your knees up and tying your knees together, and 10 points practice, and all these amazing practices you developed. Like, why did you go in that direction as opposed to sort of more of a Tibetan Buddhist traditional, maybe sitting up or Zen or?
Well, I realized over time, first, of course, with myself, but then, working with other people, that for most of us, meditation is a head trip.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Tibetan tradition is not a head trip, but the Tibetans, in my opinion, they don't realize how totally disconnected we are from our bodies, from the earth, from sexuality, from emotions, from human experience. They don't know. And so they haven't corrected that. Even to this day, they haven't corrected that. Most people I meet, it's a great big head trip doing meditation. Meditation is tuning into the life of the universe. It's tuning in to the life of the world, of the earth, of our body. And you can't tune in if you're up in your head. So I don't know. This is another question for you. How about the sort of increasing disconnection we all have because we spend so much time on the internet? What about?
I mean, what about that? Exactly. The gadgets and the addiction to my phone, and it's real. Yeah. I don't know that it's helping us. What do you think?
It's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing is, we strongly recommend something it's an ancient practice, but it's going into retreat for a day, a weekend, a week, and not taking any devices at all, none, zero. And the amazing thing is your consciousness actually begins to change when you do that.
Completely. Yeah.
Maybe that's part of it, that somehow we have to create periodic separations from this addictive cycle that we all get into.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, those were some of the most profound experiences of my life, was sitting in a solitary retreat cabin for 2 weeks, just being with myself and meditating 9 hours a day. That was unbelievably transformative. It's like, I could use that right now.
The funny thing is, you do one and you think, wow, that's amazing. But you do another one and it's just as transformative. I mean,
Yeah.
doing this for 52 years ago, I did my first retreat. And it's no different now. I mean, it's amazing. It's sort of like you take a quantum leap in your own development every time you can manage that.
Yeah. How do we know if we're using meditation to escape versus to meet our life?
Well, if you practice somatic meditation, which is what Vajrayana is, it's all about the body. If you do that, you are confronted with your life times 100 when you're in retreat. If you sit there following your breath and just, staying up here on the nose, you could come out and nothing could happen. It could be a great big evasive gesture.
Yeah.
Depends what kind of meditation you're doing. If it's not grounded in your experience, absolutely, that's a problem.
I remember being on retreat with you once at the White Eagle, and you were commenting. Remember that place? This was awesome. And you were actually making comments about friends of yours that had been meditating 25 years, and like nothing changed in their life.
Right.
And I think you're kind of talking about that type of person. And I am curious because I think a lot of people come to meditation with a lot of hope. They hear about mindfulness and they're like, okay, I'm gonna try it, and they legitimately go for it.
Yeah.
But then nothing really happens and nothing changes. Is that just a function of they're not doing it properly, or is there a defense there that they're actually not wanting to grow or something?
Well, I'll be honest with you, with all due respect. I think it's the latter. I think a lot of times we come to meditation not realizing the price we're going to have to pay in order to really grow, which is we have to begin to let go of our defensive mechanisms and our habitual patterns. We have to let them go, and we have to see how fucked up we are.
Right.
Day by day by day. Every night when I go to sleep, 9 times out of 10, I wake up in the middle of the night and I realize some new area where I'm completely fucked up. And that's a good journey. And if you're not up for it, you can do the practice you want to, and nothing's going to happen.
Right. I'm curious, Reggie, what you think about the modern meditation apps and headbands and different things like Calm and these multi-million-dollar companies now they're trying to hack kind of meditation and mindfulness, and they're doing quite well. And the high side is it's made mindfulness and meditation even more sexy and popular. But I'm just curious what you think about them.
Well, we have to have a stepping stone. We have to start somewhere. And I think all of those things can get people started. They give them a glimpse of what's going on. And the important point is you have to keep going. If you want to settle down there, it'll help you. And that's great. There's no problem with it, except you're selling yourself short, because meditation, as you know, can be the start of a very deep process, lifelong process of individuation and differentiation and growth.
Yeah.
And what a shame that it's there and people get stuck either doing that or doing their 5 minutes a day practice or whatever. What a shame when they could do so much more.
Right. Yeah, I love that. It is a stepping stone. It's an entry point, right?
Yeah.
A couple more questions as we wind down here. The Tibetan Buddhist monk in a cave who's on retreat for life or for 10 years or, whatever it is these days, even a year, 6 months, whatever. I have a view that person's not developing at all relationally. Is that narrow of me and judgy of me to say that, or is that accurate?
How can I say this? I think there's a lot of truth in it. I have a friend who's in life retreat, very profound person. He's had wonderful, he's a very good meditation teacher in some ways, but he hasn't developed relationally. And it's, I can't speak to people who, in Tibet in the old days because I wasn't there. But the people that I know, it's very valuable if it's balanced with ordinary life in the world. And I think, in our tradition, the Vajrayana tradition, you don't do that your whole life, in the modern world.
Yeah.
Our training is, go on retreat for a week or a month or whatever you want to do and live an ordinary life, have a family or whatever you want to do your work, be in the world, be with ordinary people, be in situations you find threatening, because those are the most valuable situations. I have a thing on my puja table, my meditation table that says prioritize threatening situations. I find myself every day the situations that make me super uncomfortable. And then we combine that with meditation, and that's how we grow.
Yeah. You did that, by the way. You successfully did that. Yeah, I like that. I mean, it's easy to move away from fear, right? It's easy to get comfortable and kind of fall asleep and just get really comfy in life with my phone and my house and my comfort food. But it's a whole nother thing to turn toward discomfort, pain, challenge, and actually say yes to it and grow.
Well, in your profession, that's what you do every day.
Totally. And I'm trying to help people see that, no, your relationship pain is actually what's going to put you on the path. It's awesome. It's to be celebrated.
Excellent.
But people want it to go away,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been rich. And I just, again, I want to appreciate you for coming on and just talking openly about this. And I hear personally the open door for anyone, that you're keeping that door open. There's a couple of people in my life that have sort of cut me out of their life, and I just am holding an open door. If they ever decide they want to come back, I'm up for a conversation. It's okay. And it's okay if people don't, but it's endearing to hear an open door policy there, because I think you could easily get the projection or story that you're closed-minded, your door is shut, you're gaslighting people, or people can believe what they want. So I'm just appreciating that about you. I felt that always over the years with you. So thank you for that. And Reggie, are you still doing retreats for people if they want to find you, or guided meditations? If there's a place someone can follow up if they want to meditate or get serious about it, or where would you guide someone other than your book? And by the way, your books, Reggie's books are, I think, phenomenal. Not only the Tibetan Buddhist kind of vibe books, but just more your, what was the last, meditating? No, was it Meditating with the Body?
Somatic Descent.
What was that?
Somatic Descent.
Yeah, Somatic Descent. And what was the one before that? Touching Enlightenment?
Practice of Pure Awareness.
Okay. Anyway, you've written how many books now?
9. I got
9.
Number 10 is going to kill me.
Okay, you're writing it right now? Oh, amazing. So yeah, Reggie's got a lot of books to go further. And in addition to your books, where else could people find some of your stuff or you?
Well, since COVID, we've been doing a lot of online programs. This coming year, I think we have 8 online programs. We have a series that starts with Awakening the Body in the fall, and it's a sequence people can go through. If they go to dharmaocean.org, they should get the full, range of everything that's available. Hopefully, we're going to open the center pretty soon. I want to go down there and teach a program in person for a change. So,
that'd be cool. Yeah.
So that's the plan.
Yeah, amazing. Cool. Any parting words you want to say to the listener, Reggie? Anything you want to say?
Well, I think the most important thing is don't let the conventional culture tell you you're a bad person. All the messaging we get is that we're inadequate, we're insufficient, we're undeveloped, we're not well. And I think my message to everybody, and always has been, that there is within us a very deep center of peace and stillness and openness, inspired, a warmth that is not ego-based. We have all these wonderful qualities, and we need to trust ourselves totally. We need to trust our experience. So however people can do that, to come into trust of who they are and of what their life is, that's absolutely worth doing and making a top priority. We can all trust ourselves, and it's so important we do. That's the human way.
Yeah, you said to me at my first Dao with you up at the Shambhala Mountain Center, you said, I think it was day 1, and you said, the spiritual journey is about becoming who you are. Yeah. And I'd never heard that before, and that's the journey I'm still on. And just deep gratitude for you, turning that light on in me.
It shines bright. I can see.
Yeah. Oh, I got to sneak in one more question that I ask all my guests, which is if one of our missions here at the Relationship School is to help young people. And if I had 1,000 teenagers and I could only share with them one thing about relationships or love, and you were whispering in my ear, what would you want me to tell them?
Meet people in person and meet everything they are. And that will bring you the deepest joy and sense of connection. By the way, here's an interesting point. My wife, Caroline Fohl, happens to work with teenagers, and particularly ones that are homeless. And it might be very interesting for you to have a conversation with her about what she's doing to bring practice of meditation to homeless teenage girls.
Wow. That's powerful. Yeah. Thank you, Caroline, for doing that. Yeah, totally. Yeah. You want to connect us? Cool. Well, thanks again, Reggie. It's been a treat, and I appreciate your mentorship over the years.
Well, it's been great to see you again. I'm really, really happy we've reconnected.
Yeah, me too. All right. Your action step, as always, is to go visit the guest's website, dharmaocean.org. That's Dharma, DHARMA, ocean.org. There you'll find a lot of meditations and guided meditations that are free, and programs if you have any interest in studying with Reggie. He is still out there teaching. I thought he was in hibernation, just like he did that for a little while, but now he's back teaching. Yeah, and I still recommend his guided meditations for people that want to learn how to be with their experience. I think he's a really solid meditation teacher. If you want to judge him as, some other person, be my guest, but as a meditation teacher, man, this guy is I think unbelievable. Yeah. Action step is just to go back and rewind that section where there's a guided meditation and actually do it. Okay. And then you might reflect just on what he was saying about there at the end about can you trust your experience? How much do you trust your own experience internally? And if you don't, what are you doing about that? Yeah. That'd be my action step for you today. Okay. If you are not subscribed to us on YouTube, please go subscribe to us. You can watch the videos there. I always love comments on YouTube if you have something to say. It's a great place to leave a comment below a YouTube podcast, all right? There's lots of places to leave comments on social media, but YouTube's nice because it's all in one place. Certainly on our website, on the blog post, that's another place. Yeah, let me know how this went for you. I could certainly try to interview more spiritual teachers if that would serve. All right, thanks, y'all, and we'll talk soon. The biggest factor that is going to determine whether you have a secure relationship or not is your ability to repair after whatever happened. Repair and reconnect. That's right. That's why I created a course called Relationship Repair, so that you learn how to focus on this very, very important skill. That way you can get back to a good place for life, right? Every single time. That's what my new book is about. And it's so much of what I teach right now. Go to relationshipschool.com/repair to invest in this part of your life. As you know, I've dedicated my life to helping people with their relationships, right? I want to solve this problem so that all of you can work through your differences and have fulfilling, amazing, badass partnerships and relationships, family, coworkers, friends, whoever. And I have trained a ton of relationship coaches, almost 100 certified relationship coaches, to help you specifically work through your relationship challenges. So I want to invite you to a special deal we're offering to the podcast listener, where you can get 50% off your first month of coaching with one of our amazing relationship coaches. Okay, if you're tired of therapy, it feels like that's going around in a circle, or you want to actually set goals and accomplish your relationship goals, hire a relationship coach. Okay, go to relationshipschool.com/get coaching now, and then use the coupon code FIRST50 to get the 50% deal off your first month of relationship coaching. Super psyched to have our amazing coaches serve you and help you get to the next level. Hey, thanks so much for listening. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Share one of these videos with a friend. We want to help the planet get their act together around relationships, and you are one of them, so thank you.